who is going to share her keynote with us. So I'm sure all of you are aware of Helen's work. Helen is a coach, a mentor, a trainer, and an author of The Kind, Brave Leader. And thanks to Facet, the publisher of that book, we're going to be offering her book as a prize as part of our conference competition. Facet have also offered a discount from that book, along with the opportunity to have a discount from another book as well called Information for Sustainable Development. And the codes that you can make the most of to receive that discount are there in the chat for you to see, and I think they'll be on a slide as well for you later. So Helen was a really obvious choice of keynote for our conference theme. Helen, which is brilliant, sounds fascinating, is going to talk about the ripple effect of kindness and how kindness within our organisations can really help us all to thrive in the challenging times that we find ourselves in. Really interestingly, this keynote is going to have an opportunity for you all to be involved and to reflect upon your own experiences, as well as listening to what Helen has to say. So we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Helen. And I think there'll be an opportunity for people to ask questions at the end if time allows. So with no more ado, I will hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks, Kay. So yeah, the book's The Kind, sorry, I'm just looking for my slides at the same time. The Kind Librarian, and I run the Kind Brave Leader, and I've also just launched Empower, the Library Skills Collective. But you can go to the Kind Brave Leader and find everything out. But Andy has got you a better code than I got for my book of 50% off, and he's just put that in the chat. So that's brilliant to know. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you all about kindness, and you can find out all about me. You don't need to, but I used to work in libraries. I used to run the library service at the University of Westminster. So I have worked in libraries for well over 20 years, and I now mainly work with librarians across the world. So when I talk about kindness, people tend to fall into one of these three different things. And that is, they either are like, yes, tell me more, what can we learn? They're like, oh, sorry, I'm already kind, I'm fine. And they're that middle picture. Or they are, oh my God, why are you talking about this? This isn't relevant to me, this won't work. And if you fall into that camp, I hope that I can move you into one of these camps. But let's see, because my belief is kindness is far more powerful than anyone gives it credit for, and that it is scientifically proven to be very, very important in our workplaces, for our well-being, and very much in our libraries, because obviously we have users and colleagues, so it can make a real difference. So have a think about where you sit in that spectrum. Someone once described kindness training potential as a hellscape, which I thought was quite an extreme reaction. But then to start with, let's do a little reflective pause and just see how you feel, and find yourself grounded in the moment. Put your feet on the floor and take a moment to remember a time when you showed kindness to a colleague. Did you feel seen? Did you feel appreciated or valued? Did it make you feel good actually showing that kindness? And now also think about when your own workplace, within your own workplace, whether there's been any shifts when kindness is part of the culture. So it might be in your current workplace, or it might be in previous workplaces, that you can think of a time or times when things were really kind. Now, has someone else's kindness ever helped you through a tough day or improved your mental well-being? take a real moment to notice. And there's a real power in noticing kindness, in actually taking a moment to acknowledge it, because it will do all the things I'm going to talk to you about. Taking a moment to reflect and acknowledge on it will have the same physical effects as the things I'm talking about. So if you want to, while we're going, feel free to share in the chat. I'll carry on talking because obviously we've got limited time, but feel free to share in the chat any times where things are coming up for you that were kind and really felt kind. Because we often underestimate how far a small act of kindness can go. But research shows that kindness is contagious, and when someone experiences a kind act, they're more likely to pass it on. So it changes how they feel, how they behave, and even how they interact with others. If you think of a pebble, really kind messages today from my colleagues in advance of presenting, that's lovely. But if you think of a pebble dropped in water, the initial splash might seem small, but the ripples move outward, reaching places far from where that stone landed. And your act of kindness will be doing that. Now, in a library context, this might look like a staff member taking a moment to help a colleague who's having a tough day. And then that affects how that colleague treats a library user, and so on. So kindness then multiplies. And I will talk about the science behind this in a minute. So let's not underestimate the value of even the smallest act. A smile, a thank you, a genuine check-in, it all adds to shape our culture. And I know at the moment things are really challenging in a lot of libraries. And if that's the case, then remember that this kindness can really, really help. And that this is free. Doesn't have to cost anything. Small acts of kindness are actually the biggest things you can do when it comes to kindness. So what is it? Talk to you about it, but what is it? Well, it refers to actions intended to benefit others. This is my favourite definition. There isn't actually a single definition, but this is the definition we referred to a lot when I was studying kindness at the University of Sussex. Now, in the UK, the University of Sussex does amazing research into kindness. They're one of the world leaders into kindness research. There's a kindness centre there, and they worked with Radio 4 on the Big Kindness Project in 2020. So if you want to find out a bit more, not only my things, but also I recommend looking up the University of Sussex's work. They've got lots of links on their website. Now, it seems really straightforward, doesn't it? Actions that are intended to benefit others. But what actually often happens in workplaces, and this happens a lot in libraries, is that niceness is taken as kindness. But the difference between the two is so important because they're terms that are commonly used as if they mean the same thing, but they don't. Being nice is often about surface level politeness. It's holding the door, it's saying please and thank you out of duty or habit, and it's generally not rocking the boat. Can you all think of times where you've seen this in action at workplace? The nice thing to do is let that student, don't tackle that student on something, or don't tackle some behaviour that's happening within a team, or don't rock the boat higher, because actually the nice thing to do is not to upset this person or something. And sometimes we're nice because we want to be liked. Commonly avoiding conflict is a big thing. And while there's certainly value in being polite, and I would say it's like the first thing you can do, saying thank you is obviously a kind thing to do as well, but sometimes it can be a bit shallow. But if we contrast it with kindness, kindness comes from a much deeper place of understanding and emotional connection with others. Unlike nice, which avoids these hard conversations, kindness can sometimes involve telling someone a difficult truth, offering constructive feedback, or setting boundaries. It can be the nice thing for one person, it isn't the kind thing for the whole team or the whole student body. And that can be where it gets really difficult. And the most common point I see in workplaces around this is around things like flexible working. What's the kindest thing to do that supports the business, the library, supports the students, supports the other users, the academics, and supports the staff? That's the kind thing that you find a way through. The nice thing is sometimes agreeing to something for one person, but that impacts everybody else. For example, in flexible working, letting one person come in very late might mean someone else always has to come in very early. Is that kind, and what's the reasoning behind it? So there can be a lot to unpick when it comes to, is it kind or is it nice? And kind is usually, it's an action, and it's more difficult. And if you have to choose, aim to be kind rather than just nice. Kindness reflects a deeper level of empathy, emotional intelligence, and genuine care for others. So it's good to be nice, but it's better to be kind. So if we all strive for relationships and actions that are rooted in kindness, we will thrive without a doubt. So now here's a little activity for you. Now cameras are off, so you can still do this, but in the comfort of your own home. So sit still and neutral, no expression. Now smile, your biggest, kindest smile. And just notice what changes. Your face, your body, your mood. The moment you smile, everything lifts. Even in silence, kindness, because it's a kindness to be smiling. It has an energy, and that really empowers us. And something, when I do this in person and we get people to look at each other, it can also be really, really powerful. So you can try this if you've got a lovely colleague who you want to try this with. One of you try not to smile and the other person smile, and see how long you can hold off from smiling. And if you think a smile is an act of kindness, in libraries we may be the only people a student sees smile at them all day, which is a horrible, hot thing to think, but it can be really powerful as an act of kindness to our students. So what about the science behind this? This is the bit I love. Kindness is more than just a good deed. It has a profound effect on our well-being and the world around us. It boosts happiness. It acts of kindness trigger the release of oxytocin, the love hormone, and serotonin, enhancing mood and promoting feelings of connection, happiness. It reduces stress. Being kind lowers levels of the stress hormone cortisol, and this reduces anxiety and improves resilience. And it can also reduce blood pressure and inflammation, leading to a better heart health, a stronger immune system. Now, this is contagious because of these things, because it also releases dopamine. So, for example, an example I often think of is when I've been on the tube and I've helped someone on with a buggy. And I remember it quite clearly. It was in the middle of the morning, so it wasn't totally busy. And we both sat down next to each other and smiled. She had her baby in her hands. We smiled at each other, exchanged a little moment. She said, "Thank you." I said, "That's okay." But do you know what's really interesting about the science is not only are both of us after that much more likely to go off and be kind to someone, do an act of kindness again. So the receiver and the giver are much more likely to repeat the acts of kindness. So is everybody who took notice of it. So that's why asking you to take notice of kindness, people are reading them and they're thinking, that's kind. Every single person on this call who's read these acts of kindness or listened to me, or who witnesses something actually physical, is much more likely to go off and repeat that kindness. And I hope you can see how that ripple effect, because it gives us a dopamine hit, because it gives us oxytocin, because it reduces our stress levels, all of those things are going to ripple out, and it means that we will calm and we will relax in our workplaces. A great example of this was something that I read on Reddit. And this was that someone, their workplace was going through challenging times, like many of you. And they may have, so they went out and they bought a bag of miniature ducks, little sort of ducks that they could put round, obviously usually a bath toy or something. And they waited till everyone had gone home, and then they set up little duck ponds and ducks all over the place. The next morning, people kept finding these ducks. So some were hidden, some were obvious, and they kept finding these ducks. And then they started talking about the ducks. So that act of kindness, you can see it rippling because people have noticed it and it's made them laugh. So they've gone, oh, that's great. And then they go ahead and they pass that on. And what they started doing was moving those ducks, and people started collecting them of different colours. And then people started bringing in other animals and other figures. And before you knew it, they had a menagerie of different things. Things were still challenging. Nothing had changed there. But that oxytocin, they were bonding, they were spreading smiles and kindness to each other because they broken down a barrier and they were able to have conversations now they wouldn't have had. They started to realize they weren't alone in these challenges. And even the people who may have been more responsible, like the leaders and the managers, were still involved in this, and it diffused that tension and it helped them navigate a really difficult time. So all of this is what I hope you take away, how powerful this can be. So now I'm going to do a quick kindness ripple. So let's try something together. Wherever you are, whether you're in a room with others or watching from a laptop, this is your moment to begin a ripple of kindness. Now, take a moment to think of one small act of kindness. Lots of you have shared some today, but think of something you could offer someone else today, something real and doable. Maybe it's a smile, a genuine thank you. Maybe there's someone you've been meaning to email and say thanks to, and you never got around to it. Maybe you just there's someone you need to send a check-in to, or you want to give a cup of tea to, because you know they're going through a difficult time, or you know they're also attending this call and you're in a shared office and you could go and give them a cup of tea. So now just give yourself 5 seconds. What comes up? What could you do? Now, if you feel comfortable, I invite you to make a silent commitment. Who are you going to do that for? Now hold them in your mind. And if you would like to, share it in the chat. And if you see someone's post in the chat that inspires you, give it a little thumbs up or reply. And that's the ripple already beginning. Some of you will see something in the chat and think, oh, I could go and do that. And if you're not ready to share or still thinking, that's absolutely okay. Even witnessing all of this kindness that's coming through the chat has a powerful effect. And you're part of it just by being here. So while you put those in, I'm just going to have a little bit of another look at some of these lovely messages about kindness. So, and these might inspire you. The lovely girls in my office often leave me a chocolate-based treat or cute post-it note on my desk when it's been a rubbish day. Isn't that lovely? That's really nice. And a post-it note, you know, we've all got them lying around our offices. I'm very lucky to have many kind colleagues that supported me through challenging times. It's the reason I'm still doing the job. Yeah. Extreme example, I had the bowl for a colleague who was being sick. And yes, it was seen and appreciated, both by the colleague themselves and by other colleagues who therefore didn't have to do it. Absolute extreme kindness there. That is really good though. And that's a great example. Kindness to colleagues taking time to talk through a job role for me years ago, putting me on my current career path, which was generous and supportive and definitely above and beyond. Colleague and friend passed me a tissue when emotions got the better of me in a team meeting today, and you're remembering this the next day or however long later. Oh, someone got very ill at work. I very much appreciate my manager staying on the other side of the door when I was being sick. She kept talking to me and keeping me company. And then colleagues collected all my personal belongings, contacted my partner to take me home. See, isn't it lovely? Oh, and lots more kindness coming through. I will say thank you on Teams to all my colleagues in the office today. Thanks. That's a great one. A friendly greeting when I enter the library on a morning after a stressful drive-in. Brilliant. Yes. A message to my colleague Catherine who's presenting later today. You're great because you're brilliant. See, great ones. Now keep an eye on the chat. I'm going to carry on. So what are key characteristics of kindness at work? The ability to understand and share the feelings of others. That involves putting oneself in someone else's shoes to comprehend their perspective and emotions. And it goes beyond empathy by also including the desire to help and support those in need. It's about taking action to alleviate others' suffering and improve their well-being. Now, one key part of this can be active listening. Now, I don't know how many of you practice this already, but it's a really great way of holding space for people, of fully concentrating and understanding and responding and remembering what's being said. And if you've experienced it, I'm sure you know the power of it. And what I would recommend you do to practice it is turn everything else off when you're having a Zoom meeting. Give that person your full attention. For example, when I'm coaching, phone away, everything is hidden away in a drawer. That person has my full attention. And that's how I used to run one-to-ones and how I used to work very much on those individual conversations. In person, again, put your phone away. No distractions. That time is for the person that you're listening to. But a really powerful part of this is not just that maintaining eye contact and attentiveness, but it's avoiding interruptions and allowing the speaker to finish their thoughts. Provide feedback by nodding or saying, yeah, okay, and reflecting back what's being said to ensure understanding. So you can paraphrase and say, have I got this right? Is this how you're feeling? But also wait for those pauses. Let someone pause. If someone is talking to you and they haven't finished, their thoughts are coming out. And if you're a manager or a leader and you want to really find out what's going on for your team, listen for those pauses and hold them. They're difficult to hold, but when I do coaching as a leader or manager courses, this is the most powerful part, is listen for those pauses. Now, also, you can do inclusive decision making, so involve team members in decision making process to ensure diverse perspectives and ideas are considered. Now, this enhances creativity and innovation by incorporating a variety of viewpoints, increases team buy-in and commitment to decisions. When we built the library at Royal Holloway, we did a lot of this. And whilst there were bumps in the road, we created a library that worked for the users, it worked for the staff, it worked for everybody, because those of us leading the project, yes, we had a big overall arching view, we could digest some of the data and things, but we didn't know how important it was that the team who dealt with all the interlibrary loans had their post tray in a particular place. And actually, when you're designing a whole building from scratch, the route of post is a really important thing to think about, because we needed them to sit in part of the office that worked for them, that allowed them access to all the materials they needed, but also it was near to where the post came in, where they could build up their relationships with the post team and things. So sometimes it can be about a team's day-to-day work, but also if you include your neurodiverse colleagues, if you include people from all different backgrounds and the intersectionality of all of that, you will get the best results for any project that you're doing. You need the really important part of kindness. Supportive communication is also key. It's communicating in a way that encourages and uplifts the team. So providing constructive feedback that focuses on improvement rather than criticism. Recognising and celebrating achievements and efforts. Offering words of encouragement and reassurance. Ensuring transparency and honesty in all communications. Now, you also want to be courageous in all this, because it takes bold steps to support and protect team members, even in challenging situations, and that's leading from any seat. And being vulnerable is also part of this. So it shows openness about your own struggles, encourages others to do the same. Although I would say, where you can, share from the scar, not the wound, because sometimes that can be quite powerful. Strength and perseverance, particularly in difficult times, are really important while maintaining a compassionate response. You also want to be ethical. You need to uphold your moral principles, ensure your values are aligned with what's going on around you, and that actions are fair and just. So all of this will really help you build a strong, kind workplace, because kindness at work enhances individual well-being. A positive work environment is fostered by kindness, because a culture where employees feel valued, respected, appreciated, all of that will help your team and you thrive. So regularly recognising and celebrating staff achievements and contributions, even more important when things are challenging. You're doing good work. Take note of the good work you're doing in the challenging times, because that is amazing that you're doing it. When employees feel their work is meaningful and appreciated, engagement levels rise. So providing opportunities for professional development, coming to conferences like this, career growth and conversations around career can be so important, but also creating an inclusive environment where everyone feels they belong boosts job satisfaction. So sharing activities from this can work really well. You also want to improve your mental health. Reduction of anxiety and stress is a really important part of all of this kindness. Empathy and compassion from leaders help reduce workplace anxiety and stress. And as I said, you can lead from any seat. You may not have leader in your title or manager in your title, but you probably have a group of colleagues that you are leading in some way. Offering mental health support services and encouraging open discussions about mental health can be really important. Leaders who are approachable and supportive create a safe space for employees to express their concerns. So regular one-to-ones, but ask the team, where do you want your one-to-one? Ask people where, how they want it, how often they want it. I had team members who wanted longer ones every 6 weeks with little check-ins in between. I had team members who wanted to see me every fortnight, every week. Work with them on what they're needing and what they're needing then, because that might change. Encourage healthy habits and wellbeing practices. So mindfulness workshops, fitness classes, all of them are actually really important. I know there's a lot of jokes about yoga in the workplace. I mean, you can't deal with a difficult customer whilst doing a half moon yoga pose, but actually having space in and permission to go and do a yoga class or a fitness class or a mindfulness workshop in your day, or being able to leave on time so you can get to one, is really powerful and really important, because that might be the thing that resets how you're feeling. And linked in with that is flexible working. So offering work schedules that allow people to balance personal and professional responsibilities. Also, if you're offering something, make sure you allow people to go. Have meeting-free lunchtime so people can actually go. Realise that if it's an hour's class, they might need an hour and a half lunch break those days. Can they make the time up at a different time? Have these conversations, because they can be the most powerful thing. It might be that someone just needs to go for a walk every day, but they're struggling to do that in their lunch break as well. What do they need? Do they need to actually walk at a different point in the day? What can you do? Recognising and respecting people's personal lives also helps you maintain a healthy work-life balance. So providing time off for important personal events and emergencies, implementing policies that support work-life balance reduces burnout and increases overall well-being. So ensuring that people feel that they can absolutely take time for what matters to them. And one of the things that is most frustrating to a lot of us working in the sort of wellbeing at work space is policies that just don't allow for this flexibility. And I know libraries often are working within much bigger institutional policies, but that's where we may need to be the people advocating for change and advocating. So when I was at Westminster, I advocated to have the fertility policy not in the maternity policy. Well, have it there, but have it separately as well, so that people going through fertility didn't have to read the maternity policy to find out what they're entitled to. And also I introduced some training to the HR department. I introduced the HR department to some training on that, because that was important to me and that was important to people in my team. Now, a few stats, because this is always really important when you want to advocate hire. Employees who strongly agree their employer cares about their overall well-being. Thriving employees are 32% less likely to be watching for or actively seeking another job compared to those who are struggling or suffering. Employees who strongly agree their employer cares about their overall well-being are 69% less likely to actively search for a new job. Employees who are engaged but not thriving, 61% are more likely to experience burnout, often or always. They could be burning on, and I'll talk about that in a second. 48% are more likely to report daily stress, and 66% are more likely to experience daily worry. And they're twice as likely to report daily sadness and anger. Now, employees who strongly agree that their employee cares about their overall well-being are 3 times more likely to be engaged at work, 5 times more likely to strongly advocate for their company as a place to work, and to strongly agree that they trust the leadership of their organisation. Now, teams that believe their organisation cares about their well-being perform better on several metrics, including higher customer engagement, increased profitability, greater productivity, lower turnover rates, and fewer safety incidents. Psychological safety, which hopefully you've heard of, but is that feeling that you can report mistakes, that you're safe to make mistakes, that you're safe to fail, that you are safe to be yourself at work, that you're going to be much safer if you have psychological safety. And employees who strongly agree that their employer cares about their overall well-being are 71% less likely to report experiencing a lot of burnout, 36% more likely to be thriving in their overall lives. And it also attracts talent. 62% of US workers say that having greater work-life balance and better personal well-being is very important to them. So all of this is so matters to us as librarians in our workplaces. Now, I want to share something. So I'm a trained burnout coach, and I trained under a lovely person, Jane Morris, and this is her burnout cycle. Now, the cycle will start in different places for different people, and you may also burn on. So that's where you don't actually get up to burnout. You go round here, bounce there, round, bounce, and you never quite hit burnout. Burnout is where you feel absolutely drained. You've probably disengaged from work. You might be attending work, but you might not really be able to take part in things. You might feel that you sit in meetings and it's just going over your head. It's just, you're not there. You might be so exhausted you can't get out of bed. You might physically be really ill, or getting ill with things that you never normally do. And that's your body's way of screaming. So, worth being aware of all of this. Flatlining is where you're just there and you're just turning up and you're not thriving and you're not really low, but you're just going along. Turtle head is where you might just start putting your head out. You might be just moving off that flat line. You're just feeling a bit better, but you start to return to the old patterns that got you into burnout. That might be saying yes to things you should be saying no to, might be working late, it might be not switching off, it might be that you've stopped doing the things like going for a walk or yoga or swimming or things that bring you joy. And you might also be gradually or suddenly depleting. You might well be feeling you're going down, and that's a sign you're heading to burnout. And we want to break this cycle, and we can do it through kindness. We can do it by starting to watch for our own patterns. If you're a manager or a leader, you can start to read more and learn more about burnout here, and how you can support people from and be aware of these things. but it's really powerful image, I think. And something, thinking about the return to old patterns, that's really powerful and something to try and hold on to is someone called Nick Petrie has written about the idea of opposite worlds. And this is the idea of doing something that is not your usual work. So it uses different parts of your body, different parts of your brain. Now, for some people, this might be writing fiction or poetry. For some people, it might be gardening. It might be dancing. It might be yoga. It might be swimming. It could be all sorts of different things. But find something that is your opposite world, that brings you joy and delight, but uses your brain and body in a different way to your day-to-day work. And it's been, Nick Petrie's research showed that people in really stressful situations do this, and so really high up execs, actually a lot who never burn out, it's because they've got an opposite world. So have a think about what your opposite world is. And the kindness at work can be to allow you to explore that and have the power and permission to do so. So kindness is an antidote to burnout, and burnout is on the rise, unfortunately, in libraries across the world. And many of the root causes are down to pressure, isolation, a lack of autonomy. These are the conditions where burnout grows. Kindness isn't just a nice to have, it's a protective factor. And it helps create spaces where people feel valued and supported, where it's okay to ask for help. So going back to that psychological safety, to set boundaries and to be human. So what I'd like to also quickly talk about is the psychological safety, and it's the belief that you can speak up, make mistakes or disagree without embarrassment or punishment, because inclusion is more than representation. It's about creating spaces where everyone genuinely feels they belong. In fact, even more than that, they matter. Kindness helps build this safety. It gives us tools to address things like microaggressions or exclusions, not by brushing them aside, but by meeting them with empathy, curiosity, and a commitment to repair. So when staff and users feel seen and valued for who they are without having to hide parts of themselves, that's where true belonging begins. So what does kindness look like in your team? We've shared quite a few kind acts, but again, this is something you can often do. You could take back and do with your team. What's one kind act you've witnessed or received in your team lately? What impact did it have? So take this slide and reflect on it and think about it within your team. Because kindness also begins with you. Before we can offer kindness to others in a sustainable way, we must start with ourselves. Kindness isn't self-indulgence. It's not about bubble baths and treats, although absolutely can be. It's really about your inner voice. Do you speak to yourself with the same care you show others? Really difficult and challenging times. So that's why I want to talk to you about this. It's also about boundaries, knowing your limits and respecting them. It's allowing yourself to rest, to say no, to ask for help. When we are kinder to ourselves, we model that behaviour for others. We lead by example, and we're much less likely to burn out. So ask yourself, where do you need to show kindness to yourself? Okay. One last slide I want to share, because I'm sure we're all in that staff development review time. Kind goals. So when you're setting your goals, think of them through this lens. Now, I'd love this to become the norm, but as well as having your smart goals and things, you're much more likely to achieve your goals if they don't feel like punishment. So what goals can you put that are kind to yourself? If you're looking at a goal that you've already set, is it kind to you? How can you make it kind to you? How can it support your well-being and self-compassion? Is it inclusive of your values? Is it nourishing? Will it bring you joy and fulfillment or growth? Do you need to reframe it a bit? Do you need to think about how you can do it in a timeline that works both for the organisation and you. Do you need to reframe it a bit? Do you need to bring other people in? Is it a goal just for you, but actually it involves other people? Using this model can really help us actually reach our goals and also make them dynamic. Build in some flexibility. Yes, we're all used to SMART, but where can you plan in that end time bound setting for flexibility? Are there checkpoints along the way? Can you change it? How do you change it? What conversations are you going to have? So I'd love you to take that away and use that as a lens for your goals. And finally, it starts with you, but it doesn't end with you. This message is so important. Self-kindness is the foundation. Yes, your actions and mindset matter, but we can't create kind cultures alone. When you act kindly, you signal to others it's safe to do the same. Your ripple gives others permission to start their own. And when kindness is echoed by teams, leaders, structures, it grows into something bigger than any one person. Sustainable culture change happens when kindness becomes collective, when it's built into how we work, lead, and support each other. So let your ripple begin, and don't stop there. Invite others in and pass it on. You may be listening to this is great, but my organisation, the leadership do not listen. They don't care about kindness. So when the slides come out, there is a slide on advocating upwards. Build your allies, find small wins, and stay rooted in your why. Because kindness is a long game, and it starts with brave voices. Share evidence and stories. Find those stats I've given you. Find lots more. Be visible in your values. Kindness is leadership. And there will be allies wherever you're sitting. And if there aren't any allies there at all, ask the hard question. Is it the right place for you? So kindness begins with action. So remember to choose one kind action and notice the ripple it creates. Invite a teammate or user into a moment of kindness and share what you learn with your team. I think we're now got 2 minutes, I'm afraid, for questions. So any questions anybody wants, do stay connected.